On Wednesday, former Vice President Joe Biden will reportedly begin his presidential campaign. Biden is joining a crowded 2020 field with 20 Democrats running for president. And local races are heating up too. Dana Balter is trying to unseat John Katko for a second time. Here to break all this down is Talking Points analyst Michael Furnari. Michael, third time's the charm for Biden, or at least that's what he's hoping. How does he stack up this time around?
Well, he kind of fits into an interesting position in this 2020 field. Now, right now, Bernie Sanders is really leading the pack in that group. And I think Joe Biden fits into an interesting space because he's going to occupy a moderate voice. He's going to be a little bit more of a familiar face. Now, of course, Democrats did try to go for a little bit of that Barack Obama nostalgia in 2016 with Hillary Clinton. We'll see if they're willing to do that a second time or if they're going to look for somebody a little bit more progressive. But Biden right now, the key for him is name recognition because there's so many candidates running that it's divided in so many different ways. Somebody like Joe Biden, who is so recognizable, that's going to be a very interesting spot for him because he is recognizable and he's got a big fan base in terms of voters, whereas a lot of these other candidates are really struggling to kind of find their niche.
So Biden has that fan base, but with that fan base comes a little bit of baggage. He's facing some allegations. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Now, there were some kind of people have known about a lot of the stuff that Joe Biden has been accused of for a long time, but it seemed like it all came to a head about in the last month and a half or so. But I think what we've learned from a lot of these scandals is that if you survive the initial week or two, if you kind of wait out that first storm and you stick around after that, it seems like people can kind of find their place. You've seen that with Ralph Northam. We saw that in Virginia. And so I think that's not really going to dog him too much. Right now he's second in the polling numbers, and it seems like he's going to be holding steady in that area.
20 Democrats, but 2 Republicans, which is almost just as interesting.
Absolutely. Now, Bill Weld, who is the governor of Massachusetts, he is going to be running against Donald Trump. He announced that very recently. Now, I think Bill Weld's going to have a very tough time, primarily because he's from such a small state. So it's not as if John Kasich would be a guy that people looked at because he's from Ohio. He could maybe try to rally that base. But the problem for Bill Weld is that Donald Trump is at about a 90% approval right now with Republicans.
That's going to be hard to beat. But here in Syracuse, we have another Republican who's pretty hard to beat, and one of his old challengers is back in the running.
Absolutely. Dana Balter is going to be running for a second term. And CitrusTV was fortunate enough to speak with Dana Balter at her announcement. We got to hear from her on what she thinks of her chances for the second time around.
And like most people that I know, people all across this district, I am frustrated with what's happening in Washington. Came closer to beating John Katko than anybody ever has. And we actually did remarkably well in our rural communities. And it shows that in our rural communities, just like everywhere else across the district, people are hungry for someone who's going to do what's best for them.
What do you think?
I think she's going to have a tough time. She lost by 6 points last time. It seems like it's going to be an uphill battle for her so far.
All right, Michael, definitely one to watch.